Welcome to the weekend. Finally. Should be a good one. Got a full college football slate tomorrow/today, depending on where you're at. I suppose if you're anywhere west of here, you're either in Hawaii or the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, today. That should be exciting. As for me, I don't know why, but the theme of the week was self-awareness. Not me personally. I pride myself on that being one of my strong suits, but just noticed a lot of cases where that was not other people's strong suits, which to varying degrees was troubling to see, all the way to certain points in time where it's been hilarious to see. I think it's one of those things where it's good to know what you know, but it might be even better to know what you don't know in that sense. And it feels like you get burned more by the stuff you don't realize you don't know more than anything. And I know that's vague, but it led me down memory lane to 2006. I had just moved and was the new kid on the block, and there are some hidden benefits to that. People don't really know how to read you, especially if you're from quite a bit away from where you're at. Like, namely, like more than 1,000 miles, there's going to be some differences. And you can kind of get away with certain things that you probably couldn't if you grew up with them. And they don't necessarily always know what they can call you on because they don't really know you yet. And you don't know them, and sometimes you can play a little dumb. Sometimes you can egg things on, a little bit of entertainment. And I might or might not have done exactly that. And my favorite thing was I was made aware of identical twin brothers who at first I didn't believe actually existed. I thought people were getting me on that one. Because, yeah, why would I know? I didn't go to school here. I don't know these people. And I thought, that is a convenient thing to get someone who has no idea to believe that there are two identical twins who not only will make up anything and everything. I mean, you can't believe a word that comes out of their mouth, but will also trash each other's looks. Yes, looks. And it took about a month before I finally found out they exist and saw them in the flesh for the first time. And I was amazed because I had convinced myself for the last month prior to that they don't exist. It's a great tale of folklore to get the new kid to believe this. But sure enough, there they were, and they were every bit as advertised. To the point where these two would wear John Deere stuff almost every day. I mean, in this day and age, you would swear they were paid influencers for John Deere because it was John Deere stuff every day. The catch is, again, identical twins. One would wear just a plain John Deere shirt, nothing on it but the logo, in green with a yellow logo. The other, yep, you guessed it, a yellow John Deere shirt with a green logo. They would wear the same hat. I believe it was a Cabela's hat. It would be two different tones of camouflage. One would wear one would wear the other. Jeans, and then the exact same boots. And they were impossible to tell apart. If you hadn't seen one that day, and you didn't know where the other was, it was really tough to tell who was who. And there is no tale too tall for either of them, which was the amazing part. The personalities overlapped perfectly. And they very much had the folksy Fargo accent, or the accent you would be used to seeing in Fargo. And it was the highlight of every Monday. You had to find those two, at least one of them, but preferably both of them. And you had to ask them how their weekend went and what they did. And it never failed. No matter what they told you last weekend, they would have outdone it the following weekend. And say, well, what do you mean? If you started the month, we'll say there's 4 Mondays, and you start the month with the first Monday, you'd ask one of them, or both, but for sure one of them, what they did that weekend. And it would start on Monday number 1 with something to the effect of, I was walking down Washington Street Saturday and shot a squirrel with the slingshot. One shot, put her down right there. Like, oh yeah? You turn to the twin, who would always make sure to back up the other's story. Yeah, I seen it myself. One shot, put her down. Like, oh, okay. And you would just go along with it. And you wouldn't say anything because you never wanted to call him on it. Everybody always wanted to call him on it, but you would rob yourself of such an entertaining story, albeit it's a story, not just then, but the following weeks to come. And these guys, I would never say a word, no matter how outlandish their story got. I would just let them keep going. But you fast forward a week. What you guys do this weekend? Oh, I driving down Washington Street and I seen a pheasant over by the fence at the park. Pulled the BB gun out of the back seat and shot it in one shot right out of the driver's side window. Oh yeah? Sure enough, the other brother. Yeah, I seen it myself. One shot. Took the thing down right there against the fence. Like, And they had really loud voices too, which was the tough part because someone walking by would call them on it. No, you didn't. You're full of it. And they would get violently offended if you called them on it. They'd stand up and they looked like they were ready to fight. Granted, neither one of them ever, to my knowledge, up to then anyway, threw a punch at anyone, but they sure looked ready anyway. And that would graduate to week 3 where that Monday you'd ask them, what'd you do this weekend? Yeah, I was driving down Washington Street and I seen a peacock over there in the park and pulled the 12 gauge out of the back seat and 500 yards away I shot that thing and took her down right there. You turn to the brother. And you'd always, if you could do it right, you would flip-flop between brothers. That way each one had to come up with their own story every other week. Yeah, I seen it. That peacock went down in one shot. Right there out of the driver's side window. Like, whew. You're thinking like, there's no way they top this. And you get to that last Monday of the month and you turn back to the original guy. You say, well, what'd you do this weekend? Driving down Washington Street on Saturday. Driving a semi and saw a bald eagle and shot the frickin' thing right there. Wanted it for basement, you know. Shot it right there with my 12 gauge I had laying on the seat. 18-wheeler went flying down Washington Street and I had pumped brakes so I could go get the bald eagle. He turned to the brother like, what are your thoughts, man? Yeah, I seen it myself. Shot him right there with 12 gauge right out of the semi. You're thinking, spent 40 hours this week with you guys. When did you get your CDL license? And you never questioned it because then they get really cagey about what they told you after that. So you just let it ride. You think, well, that's the punchline, right? Nope. That's not even the best part. Best part was you would say something like, you'd say to the one, you're looking pretty good today. Like that outfit. Which, of course, like, it's kind of, yeah, what do you want? Because, like, you don't comment on what another guy's wearing in that day and age. How dare you? But you knew what it led to after you saw it one time, and it was the best. You'd say it to the one, knowing the other was sitting there listening, and the other, you know what, you're so frickin' ugly. Can't believe they let you leave a house looking like that. Like, there's no way I heard that. And then you'd turn to the other one, and he would turn beet red. You know, you're uglier than shit. You're uglier than I am. You're the ugliest person in this school. And I have to reiterate, they are identical twins. And the best was, you would always see one later in the day, and it would still be driving them nuts. So they'd say, yeah, my brother, you don't know what the hell he's talking about. He's uglier than sin, you know. You're like, whew. I was occasionally, usually I would just go with it, but occasionally I would, yeah, I agree, man. Just to see if they'd ever turn around and be like, wait a minute. But nope. They always just went with it. So maybe to their dismay, the self-awareness was maybe not up to par. That being said, they did make some miserable Monday mornings that involved all the likes of shoveling before school, trying not to slip on the ice, sub-zero temperatures, going to a school on a hill in one of the coldest areas of the continental U.S. I think it's only outdone by Mount Washington in Vermont. Basically, everywhere else in the continental U.S. is warmer. And there you are. But yet, you'd get inside and you'd get those guys going. And it did make things a little more palatable. I still to this day wonder what they're up to now, but despite the ability to look it up, it's one of those things I just like leaving in this time capsule where for them it's still November of 2006 and they are still arguing about which one is the lesser looking twin of the two. Also, the Facebook Reels, speaking of story, this is a developing story, the Facebook Reels have gotten even worse. Maybe not worse. More risque, we'll say that, since the last rendition of this. I'm curious to see if it can top this because it's really pushing it to the brink of what I would imagine is allowed on a public social media site. We will see this week if it outdoes that. That being good question. That being said, what are you out doing this weekend?